All right, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to some of you all. We are going to go ahead and get started. It's right at the top of the hour. I'm going to give a few more seconds or minutes here for people to still join. This is the 5 essential tips for switching to a new LMS. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to leave it in the chat and we'll get you taken care of. Like I said, I'll give like another minute or two. Let's start in a couple of minutes here. We'll give another minute or two as people sign in.
Okay.
We'll give one more minute here while everybody's joining. Where's everybody joining from? Please feel free to leave that in the chat while we give another minute for some folks to come in. All right, another second. All right, it is right after 3 minutes after the hour. So we are going to go ahead and get started. Like I said, I am Crystal Osborne. I'll be your moderator for the next hour. This is 5 essential tips for switching to a new LMS. Without further ado, I will stop talking and I will turn the floor over to the presenters for the day. Arun, if you are ready, please feel free to take the floor.
Hey, thank you very much, Crystal. Thank you very much. And hey, welcome to this session on 5 essential tips for switching to a new LMS. My name is Arun Prakash. I'm the Chief Learning Architect at Infopro Learning, and I've been involved with the LMS for quite some time, for about 25, 26 years, 27 years now. I was involved with the first team at ADL who created the SCORM 1 standard. So if you have to blame anybody for the SCORM 1 standards, it's, I will be one of the people who you need to catch. Been involved in designing and creating a few LMSs myself. So I understand the space and been in this space for quite some time. So I welcome you all, and I'll pass on to Tyler. Why don't you give you a brief introduction before we get started?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the quick intro. My name is Tyler Elliott. I'm with OpenSesame. I'm one of our senior customer success managers here. I've been in this role for a few years now. I also have past experience helping out customers in the SaaS space at other companies. But yeah, my role here is to make sure that our customers are getting the most possible value out of their subscription to our content services. So I'll be kind of touching on some points today as we talk through LMS, migrations to new platforms and how that can, interact with your OpenSesame content or similar types of situations.
Super, very good. So let's start the session. Thank you very much, Tyler. So let's start the session. Let's start the session with a quick poll. So the poll is about, what are the challenges that you're facing in your current LMS that you're planning to switch anyway, and what are the challenges that you're facing? So I just launched this poll. If you could just quickly answer your, put in responses right here. Let's see. I don't see any responses coming in. Yes, there is one. I can see, yeah, there's more coming in. It's good. Any more? I'll give it 30 more seconds before I can. Yeah. Yeah, I have something more. Super.
It's interesting. I feel like I've heard stories from customers of all these. So
Yes. Very good. So let me end this. There we go. It's been a minute. Now, if you see the results here, you can see it. It is about 50% on the current LMS outdated and 50% on too expensive to be justified. And that is typically the ones that we hear as well. But in larger organizations, there are multiple LMSs, that they want to consolidate. That's another reasons why they say that. Engagement is a big one because of the complexity of the LMS that people talk about. But in this smaller group, I see that most of them, it is either outdated design, which makes perfect sense, and it is too expensive and the ROI cannot be justified as the other one. Very good. All of these would be covered in one way or the other in the 5 tips that you need to look forward to. Let us go in and jump into the first tip. So tip 1, know what you want. Know what you want means we need to figure out what are the features that you're looking for. Every organization has their own set of features that are mandatory for them. They're absolutely necessary for them. They have to go through this entire process to make sure that they get what they have already, for example. So they have a previous LMS. There were at least 5 features, 10 features that people wanted to know about, wanted to use, and you would want to continue with those. So definitely those are ones that you would want to go on with. And there are some others that are new and that is not available in the current LMS. So you would want to showcase that as well. So you need to know what the feature set that you would want. And I'm categorizing this into three distinct sets. One I'm calling is as the obvious ones. These are the regular ones. As an LMS, it must have few features. Like, for example, it must have the ability to share content. To upload the content, to share the content, and so on and so forth, right? So that is a very obvious one. Another obvious one would be that it should have the standard compliances that you would want, like, for example, the SCORM compliance or the tin can compliance or what have you, the ACC, depending on your industry. So you would want some compliances. That's a standard one. It's an obvious one that you must have it. It should be easy to use and so on and so forth. They're regular obvious ones. But there are some less obvious ones, which are like collaboration abilities. Does your LMS provide the ability to collaborate and create, say, communities of practice? Does it have the ability to create cohorts and run cohorts separately? Does it have the ability to create, a leader of a community and they can moderate a particular community? Or whether it can launch, any third-party tools from within the LMS. So, for example, if the course is a virtual instructor-led classroom training, and you would want to launch that course using the LMS, and that VILT is run on Adobe, say Adobe Connect, or say Zoom, or GoToMeeting, or GoToWebinar, in which case they should be able to plug in that link within the the system, and they should be able to schedule it, they should be able to moderate it, and they should be able to launch it from within the system, for example. These are less obvious ones, but depending on how your organization is structured and where you tend to lean more towards, as in digital learning, self-paced learning, or virtual learning, or classroom learning, in person, you may want some specific features. You may also want some specific features depending on how you want your learners to learn. In some cases, it is open, in the sense it is available, just go in and take the courses, very good. In some cases, there are compliance courses and mandatory courses that you have to take it, you have to assign them, and they have to complete within a specific period of time. So these are all the smaller, less obvious features that you would want to carry forward with, right? So you would want to have a list of it and make sure that you evaluate for them in the new LMS you want. And then there are futuristic ones. You want to make sure that your LMS is kind of future-proof. I know technology is changing very fast. It is, when I say future, I'm talking about the next 3-4 years, not more than that, if at all, because beyond that, something else will come in and things are bound to change. So the futuristic ones are like, for example, today, in the pure sense of the word, LMS, it does not exist anymore, right? So it is not only managing the learning management, learning the way it used to do it. Now it's a little more. It is a little more because the original LMSs were developed by software engineers, and the learning input was really less. So now you need to figure out that does it, give that experience to the learners, right? So when they go in there, does it look like a learning environment? Does it look like, let's have other features like, can I use an experience platform, right? Does it give me some gamifications, to go in the future? Does it allow me to, add some simulations within that or games within that, and so on and so forth? So there are features which are a little futuristic. You may or may not be ready for it, but to make sure that the investment is worth it going forward, you may want to look at each of those, right? So those are some of the features that you need to know about before you go in. Tyler, do you want to add anything here?
No, I think those are all really good points to think about. We hear more and more every day about, like you said, that's kind of the traditional LMS is evolving, things like LXPs and all these. There's a lot of different things in the market right now for solutions. So it's good to know, before you start to even look around, what's most important to you. What do you see coming down the pipe for your business that will be, crucial features? You mentioned gamification. That's a huge one that we hear about a lot. So yeah, all that is really, really great to keep in mind.
Thank you very much. If you have any questions on tip 1, please feel free to type it in the chat, and we'll take it on from there, right? And we'll come back to it. Let's move to tip 2. So tip 2 is all about getting a bit more technical, right? Despite the fact that there's a learning system, it's a system at the end of the day, which means there is some technicalities involved. So I would understand that you are coming in from a learning background, more than likely, but it may be good to involve the IT in the whole process, right? Because there are architectures of the platform itself and the system itself that may be, may need to be looked into. So for example, scalability. In one of the cases in features that I wanted to talk about, which is connected to this, that's the reason I'm taking it here, is that you may not need all the features that an LMS provides, because every company is unique. They have their own need for features and feature sets. And LMS companies, because they are more horizontal, they want to give it to everybody. They've kind of created a sum total of everything. So which means there's a huge set of features that they have, and about 70%, 75%, you may not even use it, right? So you buy it, you pay for it, but you may not need it, right? And that's where this architecture come into play. You don't need to buy it today. I mean, the architecture should be modular. They should have the ability to switch on and off features. So you should have the ability to talk to them and say, hey, you know what, I don't want these features today. Tomorrow, probably yes, but today I don't want this, so switch this off. This has 2 benefits. One, it can bring the cost down of stuff, and the architecture sustain also can grow. The second is that it's easier for people to learn when there are fewer features, and features that I'm used to, learners learn it fast and they can incrementally grow with the system. Because that's, after 6 months, 8 months down the line, you add 2 more features. It's easy for them to pick up because they know everything else. Otherwise, you never see these features. So scalability, which includes modularity and ability to switch on and off features, is absolutely a must. So you must talk to your potential vendors to figure out how good your architecture is, and IT can really help you with that one. The second one is their ability to integrate with other systems. You have your own systems internally, right? You have a ton of systems. You have, you may probably have a learning record store. You may have an HRIS system. You may have other platforms internally like SharePoint or other things that you have internally, which you may want to integrate with. So for which the LMS that you're looking at should be able to connect to them. And for that, they should have some kind of an open API, for example, right? So, which are hooks, as we call it, for other systems to connect and then pass information back and forth. they should have ability to have some kind of a single sign-on, because they may say, hey, you know what? I don't want you to log into HRIS and click on something and come in here. I would want to go in directly into the experience platform, but you figure out how to connect with the HRIS in the background and then have a single sign-on, right? So you may want to do that. So all of these integrations are very important. That's another reason why you need to involve IT, because they would know where are where are other data, not strictly into learning, but information about personal information and so on and so forth. And that is where another important part of it that comes in, which is the compliance, is like the GDPR compliance or the SOC 2 compliance, so which talks about your privacy, security, and all this stuff. That's where the integration also has to come into play, because now that I'm talking to other systems, and back and forth, I need to make sure that the personal information is secure and so on and so forth. So you may want to get them there. And the third one is mobility. Most of the LMSs out there were created for desktops and laptops fundamentally, so the base. And then they created a different set, which is called an app or an application for your mobile device. And then they made these apps to talk to the original platform that they had in the background. Most of them, because they've been around even before mobile devices took so much predominance here. So whether they have the app, whether they have an application, even if it is not an app, but an application that can run on multiple mobile devices, which can launch courses and launch modules and enable you to run it within the app or the application, is very important, because that is important as we go further, because very soon everybody would be accessing it only through mobile devices in most of the cases. Like videos, for example, there is no need for me to actually connect to a laptop or a desktop to watch a video, for example. And many learning programs are videos today, right? Or even Zoom, right? I mean, and I'm pretty sure most of or some of you at least, are watching this entire webinar on a mobile device, right? On a phone. So which means the classical training, which is in person or virtual, but there are a trainer and there are people, or there are self-paced training programs, all of them are going to be mobile based. So it is very important to make sure that they are mobile compliant. So these are some of the key ones. Tyler, I'm pretty sure you have a ton of experience there. So would you want to add anything here?
Yeah. I think, especially with, that last bullet is crucial, mobility. And we see more and more customers every day that are deploying a lot of their training via phones and tablets and things like that. And so finding an LMS that is compatible that way is super crucial. It also kind of plays into the other point I was going to speak about, kind of going into the integration with other systems. For something like OpenSesame, when you bring our content into an LMS environment, it is all essentially cloud-based. So there's additional kind of testing and IT infrastructure that needs to happen in the background to make sure that all of that content goes through without any firewall interactivity, stuff like that, blocking people from taking the courses that they need to do. So we always, when we're working with either a brand new customer or somebody who's changing LMSs, there's some work on the IT side to make sure that certain URLs are allowed in your firewall system. It's pretty low lift really at the end of the day, but it's just, one more box to kind of check off when you're thinking about new systems like this. And part of that, allow listing and doing testing is making sure that it's done in the IT environment that your employees and your learners are going to be accessing content in via this new platform. So you'll want to think about that mobility side, testing things on phones and tablets, and making sure that everything is playing nicely with each other in your IT environment that most people will be accessing things in, whether it's on site or in the field.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tyler. Again, on tip 2, if you have any questions, please feel free to type into chat, and we will take it up as we go towards the end. Moving on to tip number 3, it's about data. And no better person than Tyler to talk about it. Tyler, why don't you kick this off?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when you're thinking about making a switch for your LMS platform, probably one of the first thing that comes to your mind is, well, what's going to happen to what we've done so far on our other existing system? So, getting the capture of your historical data is probably, like I said, the first thing that you should be thinking about. And so this is something that you should be keeping in mind when you're looking at new LMS platforms, is how easily can I migrate my data into the new system so that I have all my historical records of completions, especially for things around compliance, state and local restrictions that are in place for employees that have to take a certain amount of training on, whether it's an ethics course or something around harassment. That kind of stuff is very important to have in your system in case of any auditing or things like that. So when you're looking at the new system, you'll want to make sure that it has the ability to accept that data from your past systems. And when you're looking at your existing one, how easy is it for you to pull all of that historical data? And in the case of OpenSesame customers too, they have that ability to have the duplicate data that we keep on file as well, so you can really cover all your bases there. But making sure that you have that moved into the new system is a great feature to keep an eye out for when you're shopping around. And I think we got, yeah, okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
No worries. And so also when you think about that, ease of exporting from the new system, thinking ahead, like you said, future-proofing, thinking 3 to 4 years in advance, say things change and you decide, okay, maybe a few years from now, we're looking again at a new platform. How easy is it for you to pull the data that you've been doing for these new 3 years on a new platform as you look ahead to the future? That's definitely something to keep in mind as well. And then as far as avoiding duplicate learner sets, this I can speak to a little bit on kind of the OpenSesame front, or more like the content side. When courses are taken in LMS platforms, the learner data that gets returned to your content provider like us, it varies a little bit from LMS to LMS. Each one kind of has their own taxonomy of how they have unique learner identification. So for instance, one system, it may be first name, last name, email. The other system, it might be last name, comma, first name, user ID. That could be a string of numbers and letters that is unique to them within the LMS. And so as you're moving from an existing platform to a new one, you want to make sure that you are transferring, not transferring people over, but making sure that they are counted only once. So, if somebody took a course in your existing LMS and then you migrate over and they take a course in the new one, you don't want to be counting double in terms of your seats with whatever content provider you're working with. So, work with that person, whether it's, someone like myself at OpenSesame or another provider, to make sure that you are, kind of refreshing and starting clean when you are opening a new LMS to your workforce, and communicate that well to people, saying, hey, if you have a course in progress in the old LMS, make sure you get it completed before we migrate over to the new one, so that so you can keep those data sets separate and move forward cleanly. As far as mobility, I think maybe you had that one on there, Arun.
Yeah, sure. So mobility is, again, for the content that you get and the existing data as well. There are sometimes the older data I've seen in the past, that older data, as in data from the previous system, are only compatible with the desktops and the laptops. You also need to make sure that now it can talk, because now you have moved those courses into mobile devices as well. So now it can still talk and still send the same amount of data, and still can contain that amount of detail that you would want to capture. So that's all about mobility. But the whole point of data is that at the end of the day, this is your historical, this is the place where you store the historical information about who took what and what the competencies are and how the skills are being managed and how the talent is being managed in an organization, right? And it's got direct connection with, how you succeed as a business, because, your talent is what will make the business succeed. So this data is very important. Now, it is not possible when you move from system to system to say, hey, let me start afresh and let me just forget about anything that I had all this while. That is not possible, especially on compliance items, for example. You need to have that proof saying that somebody has taken it. So this is a very critical one. Yes. Thank you very much, Tyler. Thank you for your
Yeah.
inputs there. Number 4 is support. Now, training on any platform, any system that you buy, whether it's an LMS or what have you, it needs to have some kind of a training for all the users of the system, whether they are learners in this particular case, or administrators, or managers, or what have you. You need to have some kind of a training for all of these people. At the same time, it is very important to understand that it has to be user-friendly, of course. So it doesn't need a lot of training, because if it needs a lot of training because it's now very complex, you don't want to get it. Because if you have the system so complex that unless you take a 5-day training program that your provider provides, you will never be able to use it. I don't think that's the right LMS, because if they take 5 days to train you, which means it needs 5 days for me to even understand it, my engagement in the platform will be very few. It has to be very, very intuitive and user-friendly, right? At the same time, there has to be enough support that they get, when they get stuck, because even the best systems will have concerns where people may be able to understand something, and then there are technicalities in technology, it gets locked out, and some help there, and all kinds of issues may happen, right, with any kind of system, as with any other kind of cloud-based system. So support, having email support or chat support or telephone support and ticketing methodology. So how do you prioritize? If you have something today, you're launching a big course on the CEO, or big program, or a big academy in the organization, and the CEO is looking at it, and the system gets logged out, and you must have it open right now, right now. So who do you get in touch with? How do you get this sorted out? How can the downtime be guaranteed to the minimum? So every system that you're getting should be able to guarantee a 99.99% uptime because of their how they are set up, their architecture and stuff like that, which IT will definitely figure out. But then in that unfortunate event of that 0.01% that happens, how do you support, right? And as Murphy put it, it will happen at the most unlikely that time that you would never expect it to not work, and that's when it'll happen. So that's it. And the last one is about upgrades and service packs. All LMS vendors, they make sure that they're constantly upgrading their LMSs. They're adding new features. They're adding new, they're fixing bugs. They're changing the workflows because they got intelligent big data feedback saying, hey, what, people are taking longer time here. Let me change this, something here in terms of workflow. You must get those. I mean, you can negotiate with your vendors to make sure that most of the service packs are included, and upgrades are included in the package. And upgrades are, first of all, you're notified about the upgrades, and you being an existing customer, you should have some way of negotiating on the price and how soon you get it, and so on and so forth, right? Big version changes is something that you would need to talk separately with your vendors, because if they're completely changing from one method to a completely new method, then they may have a little difference there, but you may want to evaluate what that means and what support you will get as you move forward. So that's about support. Anything more that you want to add, Tyler?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, just anecdotally, what I hear from customers as far as the, support from the LMS side goes, it varies a lot. So it is very important to kind of do this research ahead of time and, try and build these types of things into any contract that you would be looking to sign with an LMS vendor. On the OpenSesame side, we do all, email, chat, telephone, that kind of stuff. And we have implementation folks that help with LMS migration, but we can only go so far. So it's really important to have that partnership with the LMS side too, for things that that you need that are specific to that platform. And so, yeah, just to reiterate, definitely something that you want to consider and get, maybe even in writing, depending on the situation you're in.
Super. Once again, tip 4, and any questions that you have, please feel free to write in chat. Tip 5. Tip 5 is about content, right? Tip 5 is about making sure that the LMS comes with that some content. And OpenSesame has a large library. Tyler, why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, definitely. So, this is an area that I would say is kind of interesting because, some LMSs these days, they do have some of their own built-in content. And so that can be a really good value to look for, especially if you're a smaller company that, we just need this system and we need a certain, 20 courses that come with it on, specific topics that are kind of universally needed. But when it comes to, adding in content, this is where you'll want to really look into the ability of uploading courses into your new platform that you're looking at. And so, from the OpenSesame side of things, and really, most content that's available these days, your typical SCORM and AICC course packages are what's available. And so you'll want to know before you, get into any new sort of platform, you want to know how that upload process goes. Are we able to do only one course at a time when we're uploading things, or do we want to make sure there's an ability to do, more batch uploading, whether it's, a certain number of courses, 20 to 100 at a time, or you can also look at whether that LMS platform has partnerships. So for instance, like Infopro and OpenSesame, we have an integration together. So if you have those systems, they talk to each other, you can sync courses over very easily, as opposed to manually downloading the course package and then uploading it into the LMS. This saves you a lot of time as an administrator of learning, assuming that you're doing a lot of course additions, which, for people in this role who are, curating these types of paths for employees across the organization, typically the answer is yes, we do have a lot of different content that we manage and that we want to be, constantly refreshing and adding. So, looking for something like that can be really crucial to your decision of choosing a new LMS platform, so that you aren't bogged down with too much, admin work when you're thinking about the course paths that you want to build, and really holding yourself back in that regard. You don't want to have those types of headwinds when you're, especially when you're rolling out a new LMS platform. You want it to be a smooth experience for learners, both in their, user interface on the LMS side, but also when they are taking the courses, they should have, there are plenty of options that they want, and be, curated to the best of your ability towards your specific workforce.
Excellent. To add into what Tyler just mentioned, there are, from a content standpoint, I'm pretty sure every company that we work with, and most 99% of the companies that we work with, they have some kind of content, right? So those content absolutely have to go in. But I also see lately that most of these content is not just one training program here and one training program there, which means they are a journey, which means they have to take it, different kinds of learning assets. So there may be a video, then there is an e-learning course, then there is a classroom course, then there is another, just a PDF file that they have to go through. So they would string them together and they would call it a learning journey that somebody has to take through, right? So to get that knowledge and competency. So by having some built-in content there increases the ability, your ability to create these journeys. So you'd say, oh, you know what, there is this one content, they alone, it may not have made sense, but now in the journey, it does make sense. So you would be able to mix and match these content from these libraries and create that journey for you. In fact, in an existing journey, you can also add more things from your side, saying, okay, let me add this, particular article that we just published internally, and then, put it up there, or this blog that we have, so we can just connect it there inside the blog and so on and so forth. So creating journeys and making sure that the ability to add content within that makes a lot of sense. So you can add your own content, and in this particular case, we can get it from OpenSesame. And of course, there's everything, this LMS that I was talking about was more in reference to our own LMS that we provide from Infopro Learning, called Unlock Learn. And Unlock Learn does have all of these abilities, and it also have the capability to connect with, and we have partnership with OpenSesame, and that gives you a ton of courses there as well.
Now, one other thing I would add here too is kind of more of a general tip around content, not necessarily dependent on what LMS platform you choose, but it's always a good time when you're doing a system change like this to think about kind of doing a little spring cleaning on your content library. Doing a hard look at, okay, what has actually been in use, what's been effective for our learners so far. Keep those as you migrate into the new system, but also, use it as a time to, okay, this hasn't gotten a lot of traction. Let's not bother bringing that course over when we do the migration. So it gives you a good opportunity to kind of start fresh with a slate of content that is most important and effective for you, and then from there you can build on it, but it gives you a good chance to really consolidate.
Excellent. So now that you've stayed here for so long, let me give you a bonus tip. The bonus tip is change management. Irrespective of what you land on, whether it's Unlock Learn or OpenSesame or whatever LMS that you're planning to, you need to make sure that the change is managed. Please understand, the objective is not to come up with one more platform. The objective is to make sure that it gives you more facility and features and an experience to learn and then build my talent and competency and skills so that I align better to my organizational goals. So it is important that people adopt it. It is important that people engage with the platform. And this is a 3-step process for change management. It's what I call as marketed, piloted, supported. Marketing is all about making sure that there is enough hype, there's enough enthusiasm about a new LMS that's going to take care of the problem that they've been facing, or in terms of the new experience the new experience that they're going to get, and how it's going to benefit them in upskilling themselves and reskilling themselves in their competencies and skills. And once you build a hype, and that's a market, it could be by virtue of adding, different kinds of, marketing engagements, like, posters around or small videos running in your, reception and other areas, or videos just popping up on your intranet and saying that something is new is coming, and here are some benefits, and here's how it's going to be, we're going to be faster and more smoother and safe, and so on and so forth. So marketing this new LMS coming in, once you finalized it, is important, as in the background, people set it up and they migrate data and they run everything else. And they run everything is also about piloting it. Please understand that irrespective of which LMS you take, your organization is unique, which means there are nuances that only your organization has, which means when it's implemented, so it may be because of your culture that you have in the organization. It may be because of the demographics of learners. They are very young learners, for example, or middle-aged learners, or what have you. There could be a variety of reasons which will make your business very, very unique, even if they have implemented in your same industry or the same size. So piloting in a small group, and when I say small group, it could be a business group, it could be a small organization, or somebody, that is important. This will help create the administrators, because they would know how to handle things. This will help you create that internal support that you would need, which will come in it's number 3, right? It will enable to gather a lot of feedback from this, and then make those corrections. You can work with the LMS provider to make those corrections, saying that I would want this, a particular workflow changed, or a particular, item changed, moved from a particular area on the screen, and so on and so forth. So you can make a lot of changes and minor modifications as part of the pilot group. And you have to make sure the pilot is successful. And then this pilot group are also going to be your internal champions for other people, right? Because they have done it and they know how it is, and they're now leading this entire pack. So probably some badges that they've already earned, like pioneers, or first adopters of this new LMS, and they have a new badge there, so which will make them automatic gurus in the system. So if somebody has a doubt, they can reach out to them and not really worry about the support team all the time. So the piloting has a lot of other benefits, and simply saying, oh, let me test it out first and let me implement it, right? It's got a lot of other benefits as well. So piloting it. And the last one is supporting it. You have to very closely, monitor this and support the people. And the LMS provider, the content providers also would need to help you in in that hyper support period, hyper care period for the next 3 months, or when you start rolling it out, it's important. So that will help you create that first success, and that success will help you move forward. And that success, if you manage the change very well, it is much easier for you to showcase the ROI of this platform. If the change is not managed very well, despite having the best LMS, for yourself, you may still fail. So you would have to manage the change very well. Tyler, I'm sure you have had experience in this one, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything that you just spoke about is on point. We hear it a lot from customers that it's not necessarily a kind of an if you build it, they will come type of situation when it comes to really learning in general, aside from, things that are mandatory and kind of compliance related, but marketing is huge. It's one of the things that we work on a lot with customers around, best practices for driving awareness and then increasing utilization of the platform and then learning itself. Do your research of what customers in your space are doing, like other companies that are similar in size and industry of the practices that they're taking to drive awareness around the organization. One thing that I see a lot as far as successful practices is getting as much upper management involved, driving from the top down of leadership, speaking to the importance of learning itself, especially when there's a new platform coming in, and really evangelizing that throughout the organization. Department heads then see that as, okay, this is part of our business, part of our North Star, what we're doing. And then they in turn, bring that to their teams directly and say, hey, this is something that leadership is bringing to the forefront. We're going to be training on certain things that maybe we haven't done before. So that's part of the change management that gets brought in. And that pilot group, you're right, is really kind of a group of power learners, folks that you should kind of already know that are ones that are those early adopters, and they are looking for these opportunities to kind of do things first and help the organization to drive this change and try new things and evolve and grow. So really lean into them as kind of like a focus group for your new platform rollout and just kind of your learning team in general. And then to the support point, this is also huge. I mean, people are going to have questions. You want to provide as much material as you can ahead of time for making it a smooth transition, but then also be there for the folks that are still going to have additional needs. Having someone have a poor first impression of a system like this can be a real rally killer, just in terms of building, the new system into everybody's kind of known processes and expected, workflows. So that early stage help is going to be something that's very important.
Excellent. So that concludes the tips, and I would be, Tyler and I would be more than happy to answer any questions going forward. So all ears. Are there any questions here?
Yeah, bring on the questions. I don't see any so far, but maybe we'll get some here in a moment.
There's one question about implementation timelines. So implementation timelines are dependent on, there is no standard things. You will have to figure out what the timelines are, and you would need to work it out with your vendors there. But the implementation timelines are typically dependent on three things. Number one is how much customization do you require, right? So you may need some kind of customization in terms of white labeling or put your logo there. It might be as simple as this, or make some changes in colors, which most of the LMSs do allow you to do, making sure that part is taken care of. So that requires some time. It all depends on how much customization you want. The second one is all about integrations. How much integrations do you want? Integration with other platforms and systems and so on and so forth. That's the second part that is very important. So you may want to look at that. And the last one is based on what amount of data that needs to be migrated and how is it today. So if the data is migratable, so to speak, today, and what kind of massaging that I need to do to those data before it gets migrated. So you may want to look into that as well. So implementation time typically depends on this. If you take all these three things off, pretty much all LMSs should be able to just switch on in a day, right? So here it is, here is your IDs and passwords, go, you can run the pilot. But it is not as simple every time because of these kind of nuances that come into play. So it typically takes anywhere between 2 weeks to 6 weeks, depending on how complex your data migration is, how complex your integrations are. So you may need to work that out with your vendors. Anything else?
I don't think I'm seeing any more questions as of right now in the chat.
Okay. Do you see any more questions there? No?
No, nothing more. Feel free to follow up with us though. We've got email addresses here that you can reach out to if you have any questions from today that we didn't have, that you didn't post today, or if you're watching obviously the recording, feel free to reach out to us as well.
Thank you very much. You have a great week ahead and a happy 4th.
Yeah. Thanks everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Arun. Like they said, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at those emails. I hope you all have a good rest of your, is it Wednesday? Yeah, Wednesday. Have a good rest of your Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining and have a great one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.